We've got one more election update for you happening right here in New York City. Now, we know this year in 2026, we have Democratic primaries for the state assembly and the state senate. So, on this podcast, we've talked about what's happening in Assembly District 34 right here in Astoria. Now, that election had 3 candidates in the race, but it wasn't until after the candidate that I'm supporting, Brian Romero, was endorsed by Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, AOC. She endorsed Brian Romero, and that changed the game. What do I mean by that? Well, we know that Brian was racking up a lot of local endorsements, being endorsed by his former boss, who is the current state assembly member, Jessica Gonzáles-Rojas, and she is actually running for state senate in Senate District 13. So once Brian was racking up a lot of local endorsements, right, he did have a lot of support, but also seeing that AOC is a Democratic Socialist, and even though Brian did not get the endorsement for the Democratic Socialists of America in the Queens chapter, or, for New York City chapter, it turns out that that was a deciding moment which really shook up the race in the sense of who is the progressive or who is the Democratic Socialist candidate to represent the district. So I've been supporting Brian since he launched his campaign. Very proud to be supporting his campaign. But on top of that, what does that mean for the other candidates? Well, lo and behold, in Senate District 12, which is my current state Senate district, I've been very fortunate to be represented by State Senator Mike Gianaris, who is also the deputy leader in the state Senate under the leadership of Andrea Stewart-Cousins, who has done a very good job in the state Senate, leading the majority, even supermajority of Democrats for a point in time in the state Senate. So it wasn't until just a week or two ago, Mike Gianaris had formally announced that he will not seek re-election. Now, Mike Gianaris has been in Democratic politics for like 25 years, state assembly, state senate, and he was very good at what he did. Not only did he deliver some substantial wins for our community, but even when AOC came onto the scene, when she was first elected in 2018, he was one of the first elected officials to embrace the progressive movement. Always seen as more of a moderate or center-left kind of guy, he did show up for those very important fights when needed. For instance, when Amazon was trying to get built in, Long Island City, right? Amazon was promising all these union jobs, all these, betterment to the community in terms of better quality of life. Look at all this new housing that's going to be affordable housing that's going to be built alongside HQ2. But what was really happening was, this would have been Amazon's stronghold in New York City, which would have increased the property values and definitely increased the rent, but it also would have created a lot more gentrification in the sense, again, by increasing the cost of living in this area, but even more so where they wouldn't have hired locally, maybe for the union work, but Amazon has the ability to hire talent, not just from New York City, but around the country in terms of engineers, marketers, right? Anyone who would have been able to work at their headquarters. So we know Amazon wasn't being fully transparent or honest about their intentions or how, HQ2 would have transpired. And because of that, the community organized and fought back. AOC played an integral role in that. And Mike Gianaris, not only did he play an integral role as a state legislator, but as the key vote. If anyone remembers John McCain turning down the repeal of the Affordable Care Act to Trump with that thumbs down, that was Mike Gianaris. He had the power as the deciding vote to not move forward with the process for Amazon's HQ2, giving it the thumbs down, saying that he would not vote to support it. So before any vote could actually be cast, that scared Amazon and former Governor Cuomo, who was governor at the time, scared them so much that this lucrative deal would have fallen both flat on their faces. So in order to excuse themselves of the sheer embarrassment of a failed vote, they just pulled away from the voting process and just say, we're not going to move forward with this. Amazon HQ2 is officially dead. And we have Mike Gianaris to thank for that. He listened to the community despite all the pushback he got from the moderates in the party, from all of the, union leaders who really wanted to, have union work. But at the end of the day, he knew, like, if we do this now, we will have more problems later. So, really grateful that Mike Gianaris, state senator, really fought the hard fights when it mattered. And, he does not have a perfect record. I'm not going to say he was like the best, but I will say that he really did fight and stick his neck out at times when it wasn't popular. He showed courage, and he did embrace progressivism early on as one of the first to do so. And I will always respect him for that. So now I'm not going to have him as my state senator anymore. So it is like disappointing. Like I actually know Mike Gianaris. Like I've met him. He knows who I am. It is kind of nice being like, hey, you're a good guy. I respect you. Like, he know when I used to have Twitter, or I guess X, like, I would call him out if he did something good or did something bad. But at the end of the day, like, I just respect that kind of leadership. And I wish we had more leaders like that. Great guy. And I know his, in his message, he wants to spend more time with his family. He's a new father with a young kid now. So like, hey, I understand. That's great. I wish him nothing but the best. So now that State Senator Mike Gianaris is not running for re-election, the seat is now open. So who is going to be filling that vacancy? That is where the Democratic primary comes into play. Now, an open seat is very different than trying to challenge an incumbent. So because of that, it kind of does lower the playing field a little bit, because incumbency power is always an uphill battle. But as with an open seat, it really is a matter of who can capture the most attention, whose message is going to resonate, who's going to be the best organizer, and who is in it to win it. So, with that said, this is going to be an interesting race. I may have mentioned this in the past, but I do take my elected officials, or I take the elections of my elected officials a little more seriously than other races. So, because, like I mentioned earlier, there were 3 candidates in the State Assembly race for AD 34. Abir Kawas, who was the Democratic Socialist endorsed candidate in AD 34, she has now bowed out of that race because she had filed for a state campaign, state assembly. That campaign can transfer to state senate. So in doing so, Abir is now running. Actually, she was the first to announce to throw her hat into the ring for the State Senate District 12 election. So it's a much larger area than AD 34. Those who are in AD 34, we know it's like Astoria, Woodside, Jackson Heights, Corona, East Elmhurst. But now State Senate District 12, which did change the boundaries from when it was originally drawn, or at least it was first, before redistricting. But now Senate District 12 is a much larger area, and it actually is pretty expansive when you look at the map, where it actually does run down pretty far, going to like the top of Astoria, I think parts of Long Island City, but even more so going down through like Woodside area, lower parts of Queens, even going into like Maspeth and even like Ridgewood, and even parts of Brooklyn, believe it or not. So the fact that it is a very narrow but like expansive district, right? This will be a very challenging district because not only is it fairly new, right? Like Mike Gianaris was the incumbent who had the best name recognition and is a good campaigner and is like center left, right? He definitely was able to rely on his record and his name recognition. But now with this new race, who will be able to really cultivate not only strong relationships in the community, also capture the attention, and who will be able to out-organize the other candidates? So I do want to say congratulations to Abir Kawas, who threw her hat into the ring first. I think it's very bold. It's a good move, who I believe, really come out strong and separating herself from the pack as a Democratic Socialist. So saying that the first candidate to enter the race is a very far left, running on a progressive platform, that is huge. So now the other update to that race is that now there is a second candidate who has entered the race for State Senate District 12. Steven Raga. He is the first Filipino American to represent Assembly District 30, but also to represent anyone in the state assembly. So, as a Filipino American, I know he takes that title with a lot of pride, and he's also been, a fairly moderate center left assembly member. He's also young, so I think seeing how he's very much has roots in the district, he's definitely done really well for himself, winning his election and re-elections. He definitely has the community connection. He definitely has loyalty, support in his own right. And granted, he doesn't necessarily have like a democratic socialist like grassroots organization with that kind of power, but he is very friendly with the local democratic establishment, especially the Queen's Democratic Party. So with that said, this will be shaping up to be a race between, I don't want to say necessarily progressive versus not, but definitely between insider outsider. Whereas like Abir has not held elected office before, Steve Raga definitely has, obviously, but then also, her roots in the district come from, just moving to Astoria more recently in 2024, also comes from her connections and organizing within DSA, and of course her own communities outside of DSA. Though, Raga, being a state assembly member, has roots in Woodside, definitely has roots connecting with the Filipino community, but also other communities of color in this area of Queens. So it will be shaping up to see what type of leadership is the district going to be looking for. And to be frank, it's not like put it this way: experience matters, especially as you rise up the ladder for public office. Like the criteria that people may be looking for state assembly, it's going to be different than what people look for state senate. It is a more established role. There's 150 members of the state legislature for the assembly, but there's 53 for state senate. It's like about a third. So I think trying to vet these candidates, right? We have 2 right now. I'm sure more will enter. But that being said, it will be a really good contest to see stronger ideas, more progressive platform, who has the organizing chops to get the word out, but also who's meeting the moment, right? We can have great speakers, but if they're not going to meet the moment with the level of urgency that's needed, or, running on a platform that resonates with the community or at least people in the district, right? That could really make or break the trajectory of the race. So there's a lot to look for, and the fact that 2 candidates are already in the race is wonderful. It will be an insider-outsider shape-up or narrative. I'm sure that's what the local press, but also what I think most voters will probably see it as. The Democratic primary is on June 23rd, so we have plenty of time to decide, but make sure that you are paying attention. This race will be shaping up very quickly because petitioning starts very soon. So in order to get on the ballot in the state of New York, you must collect petition signatures. There's always a threshold for each particular office. And in this case, just know that petitioning is around the corner. So if you want to see your preferred candidate get on the ballot, make sure that you sign your name on a petition signature, sign your name based on a petition sheet wherever a candidate or organizer is near you. At the end of the day, we have a lot going on, so I'd be very curious to see who else enters this race. But until then, I'm very much looking forward to see how this race shapes up and who will win the Democratic primary come June 23rd. Hey, if you like what you hear and want to learn more, then make sure to subscribe to Not Suitable for Democracy on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. Or you can follow along on Instagram and TikTok. I use the same handle for both, so you can follow along at NSFD_pod.